last name?
So, good morning and thank you for coming. I was asked to come by the Outreach Committee to talk about the drop-in center, which is non-existent right now and hopefully will be up and operational soon. And the idea of the drop-in center came out of my ministry here, which you all know about, Big Blue, right?
Yeah.
Big Blue, okay. Deacon Eric Ellie and I have been going around in the van for, this'll be the 4th year, believe it or not. And when I first came for my internship, I was asked if this is something I would be interested in doing, and I said, sure. I had no idea what I was getting myself in for, and I absolutely love it. It's a wonderful ministry. We have now cut back to 2 Tuesday nights a month, hoping that the drop-in center would be open and serve the need for, those other 2 weeks. If that doesn't work, we can go back and do the 4 weeks. We're certainly up for that. But, that first winter was really an introduction for me to the homeless population. And it was quite an eye-opener. I mean, I grew up as a kid in the city of Cambridge. Were there homeless back then? Probably. I had no idea. And since then, I've lived in the suburbs. And I'd never thought particularly about anyone being homeless and having no place to be. And when we see some of the encampments, I mean, these people they're literally freezing. Last year, we stopped at one of the campsites, and we don't enter tents without permission, but we knock on them. Well, and nobody answered at this particular tent. However, we found out the following week at Church Without Walls, there was in fact someone in that tent that nearly froze to death that night, because it was one of the coldest nights of the year. So going out on Big Blue and realizing the homeless population really has no place to be during the day. They move from the library to the museum to the bus station. They'll go in stores, but they're usually thrown out because they can't buy anything. We tend to get some $10 McDonald's gift certificates. I haven't had any yet this year, but we give those to folks so at least they can go in, they can buy something hot and charge their phones. Charge their phones. The electrical charge. Most of them do have phones, although well, it's the only way they can communicate.
They get them free.
Yeah.
If they have a Medicaid, a welfare card, insurance gives them a free allowance to get free phones, so they can have contact with the world.
But they do still have to charge. So $10 gift certificates for McDonald's, anybody that wants to participate in any of this. Anyway, Eric and I started talking about having some place during the day that these folks could come to and be welcomed into, not be shown to the door as soon as they're spotted. I was thinking more in the lines of a storefront, which is what we're modeling after, and in Worcester, Walking Together has a storefront. And it was done by a diocesan grant and some other grant funding. And I kept looking at storefronts, thinking, we'll never be able to afford anything like this. And it was Dean Tom who said, well, why do you need a storefront? We've got the basement at the undercroft at the church. And I went, great. So Eric and I started talking about that with Tom, and really, we've been talking about it now since probably last March. And the idea was we would have it up and running by October. We want a place where people can come and form community. Because when you're really watching for the police at the bus station, the library, the museum, they're not able to really engage in conversation. So the idea is that what we will do eventually is to have, you all know downstairs where the accordion door is, in separating the large Undercroft from the small Undercroft area. So we're going to open behind the accordion door. We will have it set up just like someone's living room. Rugs, tables, chairs, lamps, a couch, whatever. So people can come and sit and be warm and safe. Eventually, what we want to do is have one of the classrooms set up as a quiet space, because the glaring lights are not great for some people. They want to rest. They have no place to rest. I mean, can you imagine sleeping in a tent in this weather outside? How much sleep are they getting? So we'd like a quiet room, maybe some cots that they can rest in, some lounge chairs perhaps, that they can just sit with a little lamp and read, something like that. And in that room, there really wouldn't be any talking. And it's so that they can just relax. In the other room, there will be talking and chatter and all of that, because hopefully they will build community. Because that's what everybody wants to belong to a community. You know, Loaves and Fishes is wonderful. It's here one day a week. It's at South Church the rest of the week. But basically, people come in, they eat, and they leave.
No, not necessarily.
I'm sorry?
We're warming shelter and cooling shelter in the summer.
Okay.
They come and sit all day. They come in at 9:30.
Okay.
They don't leave till 2:30.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was not
Yeah.
aware of that.
yeah.
But you're not comfortable. We'll be
Yeah, no.
comfortable. But that's good to know, because I didn't know that. And then eventually, again, what we want is a room where we've got MHA, Mental Health Associates, that are willing to come and do some mental health groups. We may have like a 12-step group, something like that. We may have the availability of some therapists. There's one at least in this congregation that's already offered to see people on a one-on-one. I'm not sure we really want to get into too much of that. I'd rather have groups. So for each of these spaces, we need people. The quiet space, we need volunteers that will just be there. Because if someone is going to, in fact, come in there to rest, to sleep, they need to know that if they put something down, it's going to be there when they wake up. Because I hear time and time again people's experience at the shelters you can't put anything down. You may have heard this was a while ago. I went over to Friends of the Homeless to serve a meal one morning, and there was a man in a wheelchair and just crying. Someone had actually stolen his false teeth.
Oh.
I mean, really?
They're not gonna fit.
Right, yeah, and you can't resell them, I mean, you know, but anyway. So that's kind of a thought of the shelter. They're not deemed really safe. They're great because at least they're inside, but you have to keep everything really close. So we want everything here to be absolutely safe. If someone puts something down, they should be able to pick it back up an hour or 2 hours later. I thought that we had $25,000 worth of funding to get this up and running. Come to find out, a couple weeks ago, that grant fell through. It was given to another organization. So what we're doing is we're going to open in the accordion area. We did get a $2,500 grant from Bob's Discount Furniture. So we can go there and pick up $2,500 worth of furniture. So, I mean, that's a wonderful thing, because we can't open without furniture at least.
Right.
That we have to have. So the only thing is we need to get it from Bob's to the cathedral. They don't deliver. Well, I mean, they will, but you have to.
That's an extra charge.
Right, it's an extra charge.
Right.
And that's not part of.
That's a chair.
What?
That's the price of a chair.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're not, and we'll shop downstairs in their bargain basement, because that's where I got my bedroom set. It's just fine, folks. So we'll get, you know, whatever we figure we need, we will get it there. And I think they sell rugs, I'm not sure, but, you know, it'd be nice to have a nice rug on the floor, whatever.
Job lot does.
I'm sorry?
Job lot does.
Okay, yeah. So our intent is to spend as little amount of money as possible. Because the point is to have someplace comfortable for people to come. We'll have games, and we've already got some games. They can play cards. You know, if somebody wants something, then they can tell us and we'll see if we can get that. So we're looking for support, certainly, because if people have time to be here, and it really is more a ministry of presence than anything else. As we get going, I mean, we'll be serving coffee, so there'll be an expense for coffee. We will be serving snacks, because you can't have this many people someplace and not give them something to eat. We're not going to get into doing meals, because for meals, they have places to be. But snacks are really important. And Eric and I went and spent a day with Meredith Ward, who is the person in charge of Walking Together in Worcester. And she spends about $300 a week. Was it a week, a month?
It was a week.
Yeah, $300 a week.
You're only going to be open one day, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, $300 a week once we're going 3 days. And we may not spend that much, but we also need to provide things like diapers. Because if women come in with babies, we need to be able to give them what they need. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this. We are going to start 1 day a week, because we don't have the funding that we hoped for to move forward 3 days a week. When we move forward to 3 days a week, we will have a paid person. We don't have funds for that, so we're gonna start 1 day a week. Nobody gets paid, but we will be there, and we will have the doors open. I'm not sure when we will open, hopefully, certainly before the end of December. We will be open 1 day a week. I believe Eric and I decided we would be open Tuesdays, because they'll be here Wednesdays anyway for Loaves and Fishes, and I've talked to Loaves and Fishes, Darlene, and she was all for this. You know, she didn't see, when we were here on Wednesdays, she didn't see any problem in having this center here. We've met with the library and the museum, and they're both thrilled. And I know the bus station will be thrilled, because, you know, the people are spending time there, and the library's a little more accepting of people, the museum not so much, because they're not meant to be a place for the homeless. I mean, that's not their mission.
So where do they, just in that where you get tickets and so
Yeah,
on?
yeah,
That
and,
room.
yeah, I mean, they can't, because they're not gonna buy tickets for admission, so, and they'll hang out in stores where they're thrown out. I mean, it's just, it's a sad way to live. People think that this is a bunch of drug addicts and alcoholics, and certainly there are drug addicts and alcoholics among the homeless. A lot of the people we see, especially the ones at Church Without Walls, that's not the case. They may have had a drug or alcohol problem, they may have simply had some medical problems. Whatever the reason for their homelessness, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're homeless, and this is not a great way to live. So, you know, 99.9% of the people would not choose to be homeless. There are some people that you could give them a place to live, and they won't take it because they like being outside. Yeah, but that's, you know, like 0.1% of people
Yeah.
that we have. And it's just, it's a real challenging way to live.
Aren't they mostly mentally ill?
A lot of them are simply because of,
Because the state closed down the mental hospitals and so on.
well, there's certainly
That's a lot of
some of that, but not a lot of that at this point, I don't believe, because the mental hospitals have been closed for so many years that,
But that population is no longer put in hospitals.
right, yeah, and yeah, certainly, I mean, if I were living on the streets, I'd have mental problems, I'm sure.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, I mean,
finding yourself in that situation
right,
can bring
Lead
a
to-
level of despair
yes,
and
yes.
hopelessness that can send somebody down a rabbit hole that others might call mental illness.
Well, you have to understand too, a lot of times, when someone's homeless, I mean, you know, it can happen to any of us, you know, a major medical thing. You don't have medical insurance, or doesn't cover enough. You lose your job because your job company closed their doors or whatever. So now you're suddenly homeless. Well, that starts a whole new cycle, because now you don't have a permanent address. You don't have a place to go. You know, you lose your kids because you don't have a place to have them. So now you're in this endless cycle. You can't get a job because you don't have a residence. You can't get a residence because you don't have a job. You can't give your kids because you don't have a job. So it's all of this.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. And, you know, it's kind of like, yes, we tend to, you know, when we see panhandlers, and especially if they're not what we expect panhandlers to be, you know, the old, crutchily old kind of, you know, dirty, you know, if we see their 20-somethings or even the 30-somethings, you know, it's like, oh, they should be out working or whatever. Well, I'm sure they'd like to. And they might be able to part-time do something here or there, but we tend to assume that they're drug addicts or they have mental health issues, so, you know, that they need to be in a mental hospital. Well, that's not always the case. In fact, that's rarely the case. You know, we have to look at it as a big package and not just these individual little things, because there are so many reasons why somebody gets homeless, and nobody, or very few people, want to be homeless. I mean, would you want to have to worry about where you're going to sleep at night? What you're going to, you know, how you're going to carry around the things that you have, the very few things that you have, without somebody taking them. Worrying about the ones that are out there on the street that do have mental issues. You know, what about your safety? What about the safety of your spouse or your children? Where are my children? You know, the DCF has come and taken them because I don't have a roof to put over their heads. We have a couple that we met last year that were living down by the river, and they're probably in their mid-20s, maybe late 20s, somewhere in that area.
Late 20s.
But they live in a tent along the riverbank. And yes, they could go to the shelter, but if they go to the shelter, they're separated.
Yeah, men and women can't be together.
So it's like, okay, we either stay together and take care of each other, and we live out in the woods, and then hope that the police don't come through and raid our home, and tell us to go someplace else. And it's not like they give them a chance to take, fold down their tents and take them with them. It's like,
No,
no,
they
you gotta
don't.
go, and everything's left behind. And then they gotta start all over again. Or you go to a shelter where you're separated. You don't know what the other one's doing or how the other one's doing, and you may or may not be able to get into the same shelter or at the same time, those types of things. So we have to look at it more as a universal aspect rather than nitpick at, okay, this one's probably got, drug and alcohol problems, and this one over here's got mental health issues. They're still human beings. And we have to put ourselves in their position. If it happened to one of us, we'd be there to help them. If one of us suddenly found ourselves homeless, we as a church family would be there to help them. But there's nobody out there helping them. The powers that be don't want them there. Well, we don't want them there either, but it's for a different reason, okay? They don't want them there because, it puts a blight on our city, But until we find a way to help them, it's not gonna get better. It's just gonna get moved from one place to another, from one town to another. The problem's still gonna be there. So,
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the police were really diligent, shall I say, about moving people out of Springfield. To the point where they were slashing tents. I mean, it was just awful. So folks moved across to West Springfield. Well, West Springfield police didn't want that, so they moved. I mean, it's a constant battle for these people to have a place to be and to be safe. And if this place can offer something, and we're not gonna be here nights, we'll probably be here from 9 to 3 or whatever. Hopefully at least 3 days a week eventually. We have a little bit of funding coming, I think $3,200 coming, hopefully by the end of the month. When we have some additional funding, we're going to apply for a diocesan grant for new ministries. And when we have some money, we're going to put in some security cameras downstairs. We hope to get a new accordion door eventually, because it's...
How you keep people down there and some of them not having walking all over the
Yeah,
church.
yeah. Well, that's why we need volunteers, because if someone takes off, we need to know where they're going. And we need the security cameras to know where they're going. But that's like $5,700, so that's on the back burner at this point, as is being open more than 1 day a week. I was given some questions to answer, and I think I've gone through those. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes.
Has this been proposed to the executive committee at the church?
I'm sorry, yes, that's a good question. The first thing I did after speaking with Tom, and then Eric, of course, because he's my partner in crime, and whatever I do, we do together.
We'll have that camera. We'll have that camera.
Yes, he and I talked, and then we did a presentation to the outreach committee, the outreach group, and they supported it, and said, yes, you need the support of the executive committee. So I forget now when it was, I did a presentation to the executive committee, and they also supported it. So executive and outreach are both on board with this. Thank you for that question, because that's important. Yes?
Are you going to have a capacity of number of people that can come in?
We will have to, at this point, I don't know what it is, and it's more limited right now than it will be eventually, because we won't have the other 2 rooms up and running.
Follow-up question. Do you have a method to say we have too many people in, because it could get pretty messy? I would think a lot of folks want to take advantage of this situation here, and I think it's a great idea, don't get me wrong, but having been around, we're weekly volunteers at Friends of Homeless,
Yeah.
and we see the kinds of problems they have, and I'm wondering if we have any kind of security thoughts or procedures. I don't think you're gonna have a guard or anything like that, but it could get down to that, the wrong people get through, and you'll have the same problem here as you have at the shelters with stealing and things like that. I wonder if you've got a plan for that.
Other than security cameras eventually, we do not have a plan for security. I had called to see what it would cost to have a security guard, and it was $3,000 a week or something, and we will never have money for that. We will obviously have something in place where if someone isn't acting as they should, they're invited to leave with the police if necessary, and they will not be allowed back in. I mean, the shelters have that, FOH has that, Loaves and Fishes has that, everybody has that, the people that are banned. So we will ban people if we need to.
Would it be, I'm sorry, one last question. Would
Yeah.
it be possible to have somebody give the volunteers some kind of guidelines on how to manage that?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that MHA is willing to do for us. Mental Health Associates, sorry. They're willing to meet with us, with our volunteers, to do exactly that kind of thing.
Good.
Yes. We will also have some kind of a governing board. I don't know, I mean, obviously it's under the auspices of the church, it's under the outreach group, it's under the executive committee, but we will also have some type of an advisory, not executive or anything, but an advisory board. And those are the types of things that the advisory board will wrestle with as well. And we will have people from the cathedral on the advisory board, as well as probably people from outside of the advisory board. I would like to have somebody from Mental Health Associates on the advisory board if that's possible.
Thank you.
Also, the outreach committee asked them to do some draft protocols and procedures
Yes.
as contingency for getting outreach funding. So that will happen.
Yes, and that's the type of thing, I've started writing some things for that. That's the type of thing that I really need an advisory board for. Eric and I need an advisory board for. Yes.
Are people that are in the shelters at nighttime, are they required to leave the shelters
Yes.
in the daytime?
Most of them, yes.
So
Yes.
it's those people that you're going to service besides people that you find out under the bridge.
Yes,
So
yes, yeah.
But I would think that you would be overrun with,
Well, we
you'd have
don't,
so many people that you would.
we
be-
don't think
You
we
don't think
will
you will?
be. That's one of the things we will have to find out. If it's really bad weather, FOH does stay open.
Oh, okay.
So this is, there might be some days that we're busier than other days, but I don't expect we'll be overrun. I really don't.
You know?
No. I expect some of the people that are people from Church Without Walls, they will come. Because we have that relationship already. There's a lot of people that won't come into a church building for any reason. But certainly the Church Without Walls folks, and they're a great group. They'll come. Liz first,
So,
then you.
let's say a year ago, at some point, someone came and talked with us, friends from Friends of the Homeless. And I remember her saying that they were a 24-hour shelter and that people could be there. They have a very large space, the size of the
Undercroft.
Undercroft or larger,
Mhm.
that people can sit. It's not a place where you can relax and take a nap, but it is an air-conditioned place in the summer, it is a warm place. And so that's my understanding, and I am speaking as someone whose daughter was there last year for several months. And there's also a place that she has spoken of in an office building on Chestnut.
The living room,
No, the living room is,
that's attics only,
the living room is in a totally different spot.
right.
This is an office building that faces Chestnut. It's right next door to where the old RMV. The RMV used to be at the corner of Chestnut and Liberty. And next door to it, be south of it, is a building.
The Bowen Center?
Yes, it's called the Bowen Center, and it is a daytime place.
Are they still open?
Well, I mentioned it to Nancy.
There's some days
Today.
a week they are, but I don't know that it's on a consistent basis.
They're not there on a consistent
Ah,
basis, I don't think,
okay.
because they were an organization under something Pioneer Valley, I forget, and they've basically gone to Holyoke.
Oh. Because I think.
Because I went to a couple things there, where
Ah.
I think you're talking about next to the registry.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore.
And according to Google, Friends of the Homeless is only open till 4 PM. Now, they may be like Rescue Mission where there's some residents,
Yes,
There are.
but I believe they also have a curfew of like 8 PM. But
yeah.
on a regular
Women have
basis,
7, men have 8.
yeah, they're closed on Sunday.
What's with that?
And they're open Monday, they're closed on Saturday and Sunday. They're open Monday through Friday, 8:15 to 4 PM, and that's it.
And you have to be a resident. You have to have a bed there to stay. And it's very uncomfortable. Anybody that's ever
Oh,
been
yeah.
to FOH, I mean, it's steel benches, steel tables,
Yeah.
very institutional.
Yeah.
And nobody would want to stay
Is this
there.
the rescue mission?
No, I've never been inside the rescue mission. This is Friends of the Homeless on Worthington. Yes, sorry. Yes.
So is it the plan to be open through the whole day, or they have to be closed during the lunch period?
No, we would be open for people that want to be here, but we figure people will probably go
And get
to
lunch.
South Church to get lunch.
Right.
Because we're not serving meals.
Just one other question concerning that room. It's.
The quiet room?
No, the accordion room.
Yeah, okay,
It is the access to the choir room
yes,
through there.
yes.
Have you made? a rate
Eventually,
We have to go to the kitchen.
we're hoping to have, well, it won't be locked on when choir needs it. It can't be locked now at all.
Well, and.
Well, yeah, but it's, and
We're
for now,
only-
it's only on Tuesday, so.
Yeah,
it
and
won't
we're just
affect
coming
choir
in
at all.
on Thursdays.
Right, on Thursday nights. I mean, there'll be,
Why not just open it up to the indigent and people that have good voices, so they can.
because we won't be open at that point.
But, you know, they could try out.
They could try out, yes, they could stay, yeah, if they have a good voice and can sing.
It's
and-
too bad we don't have some place where people can take showers.
Well, yes.
You know, if you're living under a bridge, you don't have any
Absolutely.
place to,
Right.
Yeah.
some cities have
I
a
know.
thing that goes around.
That's my big
And
dream.
they can, and
That's
they
my
can
big
take
dream.
showers and have their.
Why don't we just buy airline tickets to Los Angeles and San
The-
Francisco
No,
where they're
no.
wanted?
They have so many.
The other thing that we're going to look at when we're open more than one day a week, it's not feasible when we're open just on Tuesdays, is to have washer and dryer facility that they can sign up for, because doing laundry is a real problem.
Yeah.
So once we have a budget and can do that, because clean clothes is a real problem.
If they get wet, you know, if it snows and or it's raining and they get wet, they don't have a means of getting it dry. So we go out and we see clothes strewn on, you know, ropes tied between trees. It
Right.
doesn't get them dry.
Especially in the winter.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
basically have to leave them behind because otherwise they're gonna get sick.
Right.
And they can't afford that either. So we go through a lot of socks and a lot of scarves, and stuff like that because they have to leave them behind. They
Yeah.
get wet.
Yeah.
And they don't have a way of cleaning them or drying them out. So, because normally they won't have fires because that's just a beacon for police.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
all
yeah.
get
The
to do
police
it.
will know, oh, there's
So
a
these people
fire.
are living in tents with as many blankets that they possibly can sleep on to keep the cold from seeping from the bottom, and then however many blankets they can have around them to keep them warm that way. So if they have cold and wet socks or shirts or pants or whatever, they've got to find others because they can't walk around in that stuff because they're just going to get sick. So, you know, that's really, I don't know, maybe we can start a quarter thing and put some quarters in with the personal hygiene stuff we have, where they can go to the laundromat and do it every once in a while. But right now, they just don't have a means to it.
It costs a lot of the laundromat.
It does.
Yeah, it used to be.
I can't tell you how many, and I really can't tell you, well, you probably can tell, how many tents we have given out this year already. Because they have to have something.
Yeah.
Tents and sleeping bags, we're going through them like crazy. So anytime they're on sale, I buy more. I mean, tent, sleeping bag, and people have been wonderful about donating blankets and coats and heavy gloves. They hate mittens. They don't like mittens. Mittens are warmer.
They are, but you can't, they've got to be
They
able to hold on
can't
to the
use their
stuff.
fingers, so, yeah, they don't like mittens.
Yeah.
But-
I have really cold hands all the time, and I just can't do much in mittens. And-
Right, absolutely, well, and, yeah,
Yeah,
and they're the
so I
same way.
understand.
I think mittens are much warmer,
They
but
are.
you're right, you don't have the dexterity.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I think we've gone a real long time. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Anyone that is willing to donate any of their time for this endeavor, it would be greatly appreciated, and just, give it some thought, give it some prayer, and let me know.